Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the real estate world in Orlando. I'm your host, Kyle Madorin, and on this show, we're all about pulling back the curtain with the unfiltered truth about real estate. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to provide concierge-style service because everyone loves being treated like a VIP. This podcast is your go-to resource for transparency, integrity, and the knowledge you need to make smarter real estate decisions. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time home buyer, we've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready to move up in the world of real estate. It's time for Real Estate on the Up. Welcome back to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast where we bring you the people, stories, and strategies driving real estate success today. This is Kyle Madorin, and I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, a standout in the world of Central Florida real estate and a true example of service-driven success. Joining us is Jarred Denison, a top-producing realtor whose motto says it all, serving those who serve. A disabled Army infantry veteran, Jarred is deeply passionate about helping military members, veterans, first responders, teachers, nurses, and their families achieve their real estate goals, whether they're buying, selling, or investing in order to build wealth. Jarred's track record since joining the Orlando real estate industry in 2017 is impressive. He was recognized as one of Orlando's top 35 under 35 realtors and featured in Orlando Real Producers Magazine, which is no small feat considering there are about 25,000 agents in the metro area. Based out of POP Realty, POP Realty, powered by SellState, based out of Claremont, Jarred serves the greater Central Florida community with professionalism and passion. Beyond real estate, Jarred gives back through charities like the Disabled American Veterans Association, showing that service is truly at the heart of everything he does. So whether you're a first-time buyer, an investor looking to grow your portfolio, or someone who simply wants to hear how purpose and passion drive success, you're in for an inspiring conversation. Please join me in welcoming Jarred Denison to Real Estate on the Up.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad you're here today because I think you have a very unique story and certainly a unique perspective on what we do in this industry.
Sure thing. I'm excited to chat about it.
Excellent. So tell us about your journey, because obviously you came through real estate through your military service, and I'm sure there were different steps along the way. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, great. So to make a long story short, I came to Central Florida back in 2008 for the purpose of going to college. I went to the University of Central Florida, and I just never left. I stayed here. Originally, I was going for a bachelor's of criminal justice, which I did obtain. And I was thinking I wanted to be a police officer, hence the servant's heart. But through that journey, I also wanted to A, give back to the community, and B, I found that it was a lot more expensive than I had initially expected. My family is very loving, very supportive. I just don't come from a strong financial means in the background. So I had to quickly figure out how to pay for that college. So I ended up looking into the Army/Army National Guard. I signed the contract and immediately was in boot camp and advanced infantry training. I was in the infantry. I had to take a semester off from school to do that. Went right back to school and actually put myself through the police academy the next semester. Wow. Using the benefits for the military. Then went back to college, finished. So why am I not a cop? Well, through that process, I realized that there were a lot of things in the policing world that just weren't aligning with what I was wanting to do to service others. And also at the time, it was a very saturated market. So the lengthiness of trying to get hired there was very difficult. Having a gift of gab and being somebody who loves helping people, I actually ended up in a customer service related profession through a fraternity brother of mine that essentially turned into a situation where I climbed the ranks there, and I was a customer service director at 23 in charge of large groups of people that were a lot of them older than I was. I learned a lot of my customer service skills from there, a lot of problem solving skills. Eventually, I reached a point in that company where I knew I wasn't going to be any higher because it was a family owned company. So I hopped over to a Fortune 500 company. I won't name them because, I'm not sure what good that's going to do or negative. But I loved working with the Fortune 500 company. That was where I was in mostly phone sales and some face-to-face, essentially helping the adult learner. So people who are going from a bachelor's to a master's but haven't been to college for 15 or 20 years. I guided them through that process through basically they would enter their information on LinkedIn or whatever. I would guide them from there all the way through the sales process to show them if it was a good fit and then pass them along to somebody to essentially help them guide into the university they chose. Then I got deployed. So I was in the National Guard during all of this. I was helping with hurricanes. I was running security operations for Republican and Democratic national conventions at different cities in Florida. Like basically, it's called DSCR. It's Defensive Support of a Civilian Authority, or DSCA,
Oh,
helping the police officers, right? Because your local police are the primary source. It's not like as a National Guard, you're supposed to go up on your own citizens, right? That's what the cops are there for. So we did a lot of help there. I did some riot control at some point during some huge court cases in Sanford, Florida, all kinds of stuff while going to college. Eventually got orders to get deployed. Quick story there. When I was at the Fortune 500 company, I met my wife. We only dated for 3 months, got married, and then I got my order. I got my orders to deploy about that same time. I got shipped overseas. So I was overseas for. It ended up being over a year. It was supposed to be 9 months. And while you're there, this is how I ended up in real estate. You basically are either working out, thinking, or sleeping. Right. So I did a lot of thinking and decided that while I liked the corporate world and the Fortune 500 company, and it was a good title and had good benefits, I really could see my entire career for the future. And I didn't really want to, I knew I was making them hundreds of thousands, if not millions. I knew exactly where I was, and you have to keep climbing the ladder. And I just felt like if I went back, I would never leave that lifestyle. So I tried through the deployment to do some online real estate. Instead, when I got back from deployment, my wife and I went to Europe for 31 days. And then I came back. I did a crash course in real estate for 1 week, did that whole 64 hours or whatever it was in 1 week, took the exam the next day, and was an official licensed agent by day 8. So,
wow.
that's how that happened. And I've been full-time ever since then. I didn't have a part-time job or anything like that, which is the story of many agents. I went right in full-time 2017 April.
Wow, incredible journey. And what a background to have. You've got small business experience, you've got big, large corporation experience, you've got military experience. That's pretty amazing. You've done a lot.
I always joke around that I've lived quite a few lifetimes, right? Not
True.
many people have been through some of the stuff I've gone through. Not to, put down anyone. It's just I've done a lot in this little, hopefully we call it a little bit of time. I don't want to be called too old, right? So
No, you have many years left, but you have had lifetimes of experience already, which is amazing. And now you own your own brokerage. And so
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is very recent. I know I just updated Kyle actually prior to the podcast about this. That's how new it is. This has been a goal of mine since the day I started real estate. I own now and operate POP Realty, powered by SellState. POP stands for People Over Profit, which of course is bred from the brand that I created anyway, which is serving those who serve. I'm all about helping and serving people with a servant's heart. So initially, it started as I'm a veteran. I realized that veterans were underserviced, or they were being preyed upon by certain companies that basically wave the American flag and pretend to care about veterans, but ultimately don't help them, put them into high rate environments, charge discount points, force them into certain sales that they really shouldn't be in, don't tell them about their benefits, all kinds of stuff. So I have been a huge proponent of not only helping veterans to buy and sell homes in the right passion or fashion, but I also help them, guide them to the right DAV. Like I said, I donate to DAV attorneys to help get their benefits if they have a disability, so that they can have a waived funding fee, get a little extra income to use on their debt to income ratio, and get into a house. So it started there. That's very niche. It worked out great for me. But eventually I realized that a lot of people that I care about weren't coming to me because they thought I was just the realtor for vets, right?
Gotcha.
So that's when I came up with the tagline, serving those who serve, and expanded that to more like nurses, firefighters, EMTs, cops, etc. And now it's even expanded more to where I say I want to serve those with a servant's heart, right? So that's where People Over Profit came. I truly, and I know people say this, but I believe it. I believe that if you put people first, the profits will always follow. I truly believe in that. Whether you call it, I'm a Christian, but whether you call it God, whether you call it the universe working for you, books like The Secret, I think there's a universal truth there that if you put people first and you're a great human being, that universe, God, whatever you call it, will take care of you. And that's been true up to this point. So why change, right? So that's where POP Realty was born out of. I'm really hoping to get agents that truly put the people before the paycheck, with the understanding that if you treat people correctly, those paychecks seem to flow.
It's a fantastic message. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's wonderful. This definitely is a people business. And I think that especially as the world has changed, we have a lot of new technology. And there's many ways that people can help themselves. And you're not so much relying on a real estate agent any longer to provide you with properties to see, to examine, to peruse, because you can go online and do that. It's much more about how else that agent can provide value to you, what services they can provide to help. And I think that your mindset is fantastic.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more with what you just said.
So obviously, since you've gone down this incredible journey, this path of life and gotten into real estate how you did, and now worked your way up to becoming a brokerage owner, there are probably things that you would have done differently if you had to start all over. Some of our listeners are considering getting into real estate. So what are some pitfalls, some things that if you could do it differently today, looking back on it, that you would have avoided?
It's a great question. One of the first things I did was I didn't take a whole lot of time to interview multiple brokerages. I was so excited about having my license, and there were a couple companies that had come in to talk to us as new agents that I really just laser focused on the ones I'd already met. And that was a mistake. Ultimately, a brokerage I ended up at, as much as it provided some benefit, there were some predatory situations that happened where I ended up on a team that I have nothing against teams, but this particular team took credit for my production, which I didn't think was a big deal, right? I didn't care because I was still making okay money. I was working the job. I knew how to do contracts until I decided to try to move to a different brokerage. And they were like, well, where's your proof, right? Because my stats weren't showing up on MLS. My stats didn't exist. They were all under my previous broker / team leader. So there were some mistakes made there. So I would say interview multiple brokerages. I would interview a major franchise, a boutique brokerage, meaning somebody that's not associated with a franchise at all, and then try to find somebody like me that's mixed, where it's either a powered by brand, maybe it's a team, maybe it's a brokerage, where they're leveraging the power of a nationwide brand, but they also have control of their brokerage. And if you at least interview those three, you get a good idea of what's important to you. Is it structure, and is it, transaction coordination and timelines with a whole team at a lower split? Or are you more of a self-starter? You don't need too much, but you have maybe a solid split with minimal coaching and help. You need to find out what's important to you.
Excellent advice. Yes. I think that for people who are out there considering getting into real estate, you, in many cases, are your own boss. And so if you have a hard time staying motivated and also having some personal sort of structure, I guess, to keep you on task and to do the right things, it can be quite challenging because there's always shiny objects and distractions and things that happen. And so you really need to be a self-starter. So in those situations, joining a team might be great because you have a little more structure, you've got accountability. But for those people out there who really can focus and are very structured and can set up systems on their own, then yeah, you have the ability to be that independent contractor who joins a brokerage on your own. But it's wonderful. There's so many different ways to go about success in this industry. And there's not just one path to success. And I love the fact that you laid out a few different options. And that is a great way for people to start. So many people walk into a brokerage and they just end up signing up with the first brokerage who wants them.
Yes. And then also, it should be noted that even if you make the wrong choice, the great thing about our industry is that because you're an independent contractor, you hypothetically could hop to a new one the next day, and there's no shortage of brokers looking for agents. So in our industry, unlike other industries where you're having to prove yourself to the boss to get hired, it's the opposite here. Brokers will sell to you to show you what value they can provide you in the hopes that they obtain your business.
Absolutely. So in our current world, things have changed a bit within the last year, especially with the way things are structured for home buyers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of education that agents have had to undertake with how to approach these changes. And also for the public, there's still a lot of people I talk to who don't completely understand what has changed. So I'd like, because you're an expert working with buyers, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what has happened from a buyer's perspective, and then flipping perspectives then, as a real estate agent, how do you attract buyers in this new environment that we're having here?
Great question. So I'll start with the first part to keep it in order. What has happened? The way I like to describe it is something I actually learned through a coach that I use, is that the what didn't change, the how did, right? So what does that mean? Prior to this lawsuit change, The way it worked was, as a realtor, you connect with your buyer, skipping all the stuff. You find the house, da 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 da. We go to see the house. That's usually when the realtor pulls up the MLS sheet. They find out what's being offered for what's called a co-broke, meaning that the listing agent has selected a percentage. I'm not going to say percentages, but a percentage total, and they were giving a percentage of that to the other agent, meaning that the seller wasn't technically reimbursing the agent. The seller was paying their agent was co-broking with a buyer's agent. So what was happening was, as a buyer's agent, we would figure out the house. Ironically, that's when we figured out what our paycheck was, right? Very interesting. You log in, it's like, oh, you're getting X percentage. Another one might be X percentage higher, lower. So you never really knew what you were going to get, right? Also, as buyers, you could just kind of call and work with 20 different agents. So there wasn't a whole lot of love between the two, because agents felt that if they were working cold lead systems that came in, there wasn't a huge commitment from buyer, but buyers also felt that they weren't getting the service that they deserved. And then all of this led to the fact that everybody also felt they were being pushed into things that violated antitrust laws. So now everything's hyper above board. You have to sign a form with an agent either before or at your first showing, or like for me, I show a lot of my own listings. So if you call me on my listing and you come, I can show you my own listing. The listing agent can show you their own listing. But once you decide to proceed with a contract, you have to fill out a form. We, in our state and in my brokerage, we have 3 different forms we use. Ultimately, there's one that's exclusive buyer broker, meaning that no matter what you as a buyer purchase, you owe the commission to your buyer agent directly now, and not the agent, but the brokerage. Okay. One is a showing agreement, meaning, hey, we're showing you these properties. We are going to charge X percentage or a flat fee. We will try to recuperate that from the seller, but if we cannot recoup the full cost, you will pay the difference or the remainder. And then another one's kind of a combination of those two, where you set a timeline. And if a property is procured within that timeline, or one that you saw with the agent during that timeline, that brokerage is owed the money. Now, of course, that requires you to be on top of it, but the brokerage to also follow up. So could there be some nefarious acts there? Of course, just like anything else, there's a gray area. But ultimately, as a consumer, what you need to know is that you're going to get a better experience, because now the agent has to provide you a document with listed services of everything they're going to provide to you for that amount, whether it's a flat fee, a retainer fee, or a percentage, exactly how that's going to go, when you owe them, when you don't. And whatever number they put on that document, if they do go to a seller or a construction company and they're offering more than that, the remainder has to go to you. You're legally bound to go back to you. So you as a consumer now, you know exactly what you're paying for. You have the leverage to fire that agent if they're not meeting their duties. And the agent's going to try to recoup that via closing cost assistance, or what's called a seller to broker compensation form. And if they can't get that from the seller, which is the traditional method prior to the lawsuit, then you'll owe the difference or the rest. I hope that was a good recap.
No, that's a good summary. It's quite complex, and I think that was a very good breakdown of it. So essentially, it should create a better sense of loyalty between customers and their agents on both sides. It's a two-way street.
Yes,
to make sure the agent's looking out for the customer's best interest, and the customer's also not working with 20 different agents, like you said.
100%. And so you should hypothetically get a much better experience. And then to answer the backside of the question, how does that help you as an agent, I believe is what you were saying, or how do you adjust an agent?
Yeah. So how do you, as an agent, then what's changed with how to attract buyers? It's a little different now than it was before.
Yeah, it is. For fellow realtors or other brokers out there, the best way that I've learned to attract buyers is to show them that, hey, everything's the same with regard to what we can do for you, but I want to make a list. I want to make a marketing package. I want to have a buyer presentation. So that's an overused term. Everybody that sells a home with a listing at least goes with a comparative market analysis, shows what they would charge, maybe based off different tiers. We need to do that for buyers now, right? You have to. If you do not have a buyer's presentation of what you do, how you do it, how do you analyze the properties for them? Do you have an artificial intelligence or technology that also views the property they're seeing and sends them ahead? Do you use a concierge where you can see the property your customer looks at and you find other properties? Do you have an off-market strategy where you're calling owners in a specific area to try to find people that aren't even on the market yet? You have to start getting creative for your buyers to show what you're doing that's different than anybody else, because simply setting something up in MLS on an auto email for the customer who's already looking on Zillow or Realtor.com, so they don't care about your auto email, to text you a listing and say, let's see this today, is simply not going to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work anymore. That's the old days. Yeah. So things have changed. That's great. So when we look at the marketplace, we've had a very interesting 2024. And so now in 2025, I think there's a lot of anticipation that things might change a bit. So I know that you're not a fortune teller, but if you had to pull out your real estate crystal ball
Sure.
and predict what buyers and sellers can anticipate over the next 12 months, how do you think the market's going to be changing?
Yeah, so I think we're in an adjustment period, right? And that's something that we haven't seen since 2008, 9, or 10, right? So even for an agent like me that's been in since 2017, market's been on the up and up the entire time. So, and unfortunately for agents that have been in 2019, 2020, when it was shooting fish in a barrel because money was almost free at 2-3%, there's a lot of changes that are happening in the market. So I think one thing to get excited about is no matter which way you lean, I don't care if you're right or left or center, the fact that the election's over should be something to help, because I think everybody was in a pregnant pause waiting to see what would happen. So whether it went the way you wanted it to or it went the way you didn't, it doesn't really matter. What's happening is now the market's responding, without getting into super details on the index and looking at mortgage-backed securities and bonds and all that stuff. Just understand that it is planned that we're fighting inflation. It appears that the administrations are doing what they need to do to battle inflation. And when there is some market volatility, whether that's international or local, it actually assists you in a way better, to where they'll drop rates to try to encourage homeownership, to raise the tax base. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to have a situation where rates will continue to flatten out. They should get back from these 7.5, 6.5 down to, I believe we're going to land somewhere with a 5 in front of it. Whether that's 5.95, 5.75, 5 flat, I don't know. But I do believe that the pent-up demand of people who are waiting for affordability is going to occur in 2024, because the rates will come down. And remember, I mean, for every 1% that a home goes down, you could save $400 or $500 a month, right? For every $10,000 in purchase power, it's about $50. So if you save $400 a month, divide by 50, that's 8. Use that 8 multiplier times 10,000. That's an $80,000 difference in purchase power, right? That's huge. So when we get something with a 5 instead of something with a 7, we could be in a situation where you have 100,000 plus more purchase power. Not to mention these sellers have maxed out, right? They've gotten 30% in 1 year. They've gotten 300% since if I bought a home in 2017. So those are going to trend backwards. Sellers need to be prepared for prices to come down. As prices come down, then rates come down. We're going to hit a certain area where supply and demand begin to even keel. Average days on market will climb. I think they'll get close to 60, maybe 70 days, maybe even 90 in some markets, and we'll have a much more even market. So I think it's something to be excited about. Ironically, I think my clients on both sides are going to both feel shorted. The buyers are going to be like, well, I wish I had 3.5 rates. And the sellers are going to say, well, crap, my home was worth 400. You're telling me I can only get 375 now? And I think that's the sign of a great negotiation, when both sides leave feeling a little bit slighted, but they both are also happy about the experience.
That's true. If each gives a little bit, they can't say it was unfair to the other party, like the other party got a leverage. So it's, yeah, you're right. It's very much a neutral marketplace at the moment. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who have been struggling to purchase, first-time home buyers, people who are relocating to this market who've had a hard time, who are hoping prices come down a little bit, make it a little bit more affordable with these high interest rates. So
100%. And, and the price coming down is one part of it. The affordability of the money is another part, right? We ran numbers for a $275,000 listing I had. And even with 3.5% down, I think the mortgage was going to be like $2,200. I mean, you could buy with $2,200 back in 2020, you could have bought a $500,000 house, to put that in perspective. So as that gap starts to come down, because wages simply can't keep up, you're not getting a 30% raise in any year. I believe that as those prices and rates come down to get closer to what people can actually afford, it's something to get excited about.
Absolutely. Let's talk for a minute about your strategy for attracting customers through circle prospecting and through community events. I know those are very important to you.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for bringing it up. While I do come from a cold calling background with regard to my Fortune 500 experience, and while I also have customer service experience, what I found was helpful for me to meet people is, number one, any time that I can have, instead of just one-on-ones, I can be on a stage and have a larger audience. That's better for me as a business owner, right? So why would you spend 30 minutes at a coffee meeting when you could spend 30 minutes in front of 200 people, right? So ultimately, what I decided to do was to use the money that I would have spent on lead sources and host large events. I started simply in my little community. So I put out mailers to my little 135 houses nearby me that gave market updates, but also referenced an upcoming event. For example, I did a movie night. We played Sing 2. I paid a company, I don't know, $1,500. They set up a 60-foot blow up projector screen. I had Ritter's, which is a local frozen custard company, come out for free because they wanted to advertise. I had a popcorn machine come out. I had one of my title sponsors bought full-size candy bars. We did free beer and wine, which I did get an insurance policy for that day for. We had everything, kit and caboodle, right? Everybody that came just have to sign up for the email. And then I had a big QR code before the movie started to sign up for a raffle for a Visa gift card, so that encouraged even more people to sign up with the full understanding that I'm not going to fully spam you. I want to A, invite you to the more events if you're having fun, and B, please, if you are considering buying, selling, whatever you're going to do, please use me. I'm a local community expert. I'm right here in your backyard. I'm your neighbor. I'm your friend. So by doing that kind of stuff, yeah, you might spend a little more on the front end. It might cost you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. But if you were going to spend $400 or $500 a month on some crap leads anyway, you're better off communicating with people, shaking their actual hands, meeting their children, understanding you're providing something for them, and continue to follow up. And so when you're circle prospecting, I don't have to call and be like, oh, well, I'm a realtor in the area. No, I call and I'm like, hey, is this John at 123 Main Street? Yeah, it is. Hey, John, I didn't know if you heard. I actually posted on the community board. I sit on the HOA, but I'm also just one of your neighbors. I'm putting on a big community event. Didn't know if you saw it. No, I didn't. Blah, 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 right? I'm connecting with them on a human level, and they already know who I am because I tell them who I am. Hey, I'm with POP Realty, blah, blah, blah. And it's just more subtle that way. And I think instead of selling them, it's more, okay, well, if he's this nice of a human and his business can afford to do these things, then perhaps he's a good realtor to use. So that's the method I've done. Another event that I do constantly, and agents, feel free to steal this because you can't live in every neighborhood. I put on garage sales. And so what I actually do is months in advance, I set the garage sale date. We have a banner, we have directional signs, but more importantly, we have our community Facebook that I, of course, control, but we post it in there. And then I also create a map. So any neighbors that are interested, I actually make a physical map with stars of every participating community or participating home. And I give every single home 5 or 10 copies of that. Why? Number one, I get to meet the homeowner who very likely might be doing a garage sale to make room to sell, right? And number two, no matter where somebody lands in the garage sale, when you provide them that map, you're sending them to all the other locations, and it provides value to the people at the garage sale and drives price. So you actually get more people making more profit. You get neighbors that communicate and help each other. And then I also buy a bunch of hot dogs and burgers and I grill them up myself. And I drive to the neighbors participating and hand out free hot dogs, free sodas with a little bit of a clipped, business card or whatever next to it. So again, I'm just meeting people in person, providing value, helping them make some money at a garage sale, and I might catch them prior to or right near the time when they're looking to sell or move up or move down anyway.
Fantastic ideas. I love the strategy. You've thought it out so well, and it's multi-layered in terms of the communication, the number of touches that you're having with those customers, potential customers. It's great. It's great. So definitely, if you're listening, that is gold. I mean, that was worth the price of admission today on its own. So thank you so much. So I know there's probably a lot of people out there, both prospective agents, current agents, and also buyers and sellers who might have questions for you. What's the best way that they could reach out to you?
That's a great question. My cell phone is always open. I'm very careful about being able to respond in a timely manner, but also within the boundaries of my family. So you can always text or call me directly at 407-247-2899, or you can visit POP Realty. That's POPRLTY.com. And right now, as we're transitioning our email system, you can also email me at Jarred Realtor. That's JARRED Realtor@gmail.com.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, people over profit is definitely what you're all about. And I greatly appreciate the time you took with us today, Jarred. It was amazing hearing the strategies and the stories about your background. You are certainly the type of agent that we should all be proud to have working in our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity, and thanks for what you do as well.
My pleasure. Everybody, Jarred Denison, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for listening. And Jarred, thanks again for your time. Best wishes to you and everybody out there. We look forward to having you join us next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
As we conclude another eye-opening episode of Real Estate on the Up, I want to express my appreciation for joining us. Thank you for being a valuable part of the Real Estate on the Up community. Your time and engagement mean the world, so make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your real estate goals are my priority, and my team and I are here to provide the personalized attention and service that have earned us high recognition. If you have questions, need guidance, or are ready to make a move, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just a message away. I'm Kyle Madorin, one of Rate My Agent's top 100 in the United States, signing off. Until next time, take care and make those real estate dreams a reality.